It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show, right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Almost a decade I've been on this program telling you what I think of the housing market. I share with you national, regional, local news, apply that to us here in the Low Country, and then share my experience as somebody that's been selling real estate for 16 years, over 1,000 transactions and about $1 billion worth of real estate volume under my belt. So I share information on the process, what you need to understand about the trends within the marketplace and the process of buying, selling, and investing in real estate so that you're an informed consumer. You're ready to go when you do decide to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, or perhaps choose to sell real estate as your career path. So I'm in the studio this morning, so I welcome your calls. If you have anything that you'd like to ask me real estate related, I'm happy to spend some time on air with you and chat through that. The number in the studio is 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. Now, if you want to have a conversation with me that's private, my number personally is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. You can also check us out online. There's a bunch of stuff on our website, hundreds of versions of the show. You can search the MLS. You can find out how much your home is worth. You can find out how many buyers we have that we're working with that match your home's criteria. It's a really awesome feature on our website. So listingsincharleston.com is the website to go to, listingsincharleston.com. So here's the plan. I want to talk about some takeaways from the annual South Carolina Economic Conference that we had. This was last week, and it was presented to a bunch of real estate agents, so there was a nice tie-in with housing. I want to share the good news there, because I think it is good news. South Carolina's got we're in a relatively strong position headed into this year. I also want to talk about, is it reasonable for you to sell your home on your own without a real estate agent? When's the right time to sell for sale by owner? Can you pull it off? What are some things that you need to know? How do you protect yourself to make sure that that because you don't know what you don't know, that's not going to come up and bite you in the rear end? And then I also want to talk about some unethical behavior in real estate, things that happen kind of behind the scenes that you as a consumer aren't necessarily privy to, but I want to make you aware of it and share some stories with you there. So again, the number here in the studio, if you have any questions, you have a story you'd like to share, general knowledge, very specific, you call the shots. 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio. So some takeaways from the annual South Carolina Economic Conference were that, again, South Carolina our economy has rebounded, and it's in a relatively strong position going into this year. Of course, that's barring any major disruptions from any additional, COVID-19 variants and just things that are obviously outside of our control. But South Carolina in general, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but in the past decade, we've been ranked third in net migration, which last year was up a little over 10%. And in 2020, we were the second state in terms of population growth, behind Idaho, of all places. So a lot of people moving to the area. And of course, why not? It's a beautiful, fantastic, awesome place to live. We can thank, Condé Nast and all these other publications that have basically yelled with a megaphone at how amazing Charleston is a place to live. And so much so, quite honestly, that we're dealing with some folks that have basically decided this is not the Charleston that they have grown to love. It's not really what they signed up for. They've been here for 15, 20 plus years. Maybe they grew up here, and it just looks so much different. Well, obviously, change is inevitable. We can't change that. But they've decided, hey, this is just becoming too much for me. There's too much traffic. There are too many people. So I want to get back to that small town feel. And I get it. But here's something very interesting. If you look at who is moving to the area, approximately 69% of people moving to South Carolina are over 55, implying essentially a 2-to-1 ratio of new consumers to new workers. In other words, for every individual that moves to South Carolina who's of prime working age, there are 2 additional people that are moving to South Carolina who are outside of that prime working age. And so what we're seeing is, let's maybe go back just a second. Let's talk about what drove demand last year. 4 basic things. We had employment, just the rebound of employment, right? People getting back to work. We've got this huge work from anywhere movement. And that's caused this great kind of reshuffling of society. If people can work where they want to work from and they're no longer beholden to a specific location because of their commute to work, guess what? A lot of people chose Charleston, South Carolina. And again, for obvious reasons. But we had this rebound in population. We had this growth of employment again. We had population growth. But then we also had federal stimulus money, and we had incredibly low interest rates. So if you think about it, the stimulus funds, the child tax credits, all that good stuff, boosted personal spending, which increased economic demand. People are spending, or basically have spent the money they were given. It's worked its way through the system. And now we're returning to more normal consumer spending trends. But inflation is an issue. We all know it's an issue. That's the threat for this year is high inflation. And then, of course, ongoing labor shortages. It's going to be a bottleneck for growth in South Carolina for several years ahead, based on increased demand. And so this year, we don't have federal stimulus, and we don't necessarily have extremely low interest rates, but we still have historically very low interest rates. So let me kind of apply that to the housing market. In 2020, sales skyrocketed, and then they actually declined a little bit in 2021 in comparison. We had a 17.3% increase in sales in 2020, and then just an 8.8% increase in sales last year. So overall growth was negative 7.5% if you compare the second half of 2020 to the second half of 2021. There's a trend in there, and it doesn't necessarily reflect a decline in demand. That's what I want some folks to take away from some of this, because you're going to see publications. I watched this. I had a friend send me a video. Quick sidebar here, but I had a friend send me a video, and he was monitoring online search results for generic real estate-based keywords like real estate or house for sale, and essentially was stating that because there's been a decline over the past 3 months in the number of people that have been searching for that search term through Google or Yahoo or Bing or whatever, that the crash was imminent, that the tidal wave of foreclosures was building and is soon among us. You need to be really careful about some of the news that you watch and things you read and listen to. And yes, I understand the irony in that. All right, we can all have a laugh at that. But there are people out there simply designed to get your attention so that they can then sell you something. This is not that show. This is my opportunity to inform you in a very matter-of-fact way about my beliefs in the market, and I've been doing it for 16 years, and for the past, almost decade, I've been on this program telling you this stuff, and I got to say, the track record's looking pretty good. I think I've got a pretty good handle on this stuff. But if we look back at these sales, what I want to mention is that the decrease in closings that we had does not necessarily reflect a decline in demand. It's just simply the bottleneck of supply constraints. We just have less homes to purchase, and we still haven't gotten back on our feet after the end of the year 2021, because as I've mentioned, 1 o'clock in the morning on January 1st every year, really 12:01 if we want to get technical, but every year, as soon as the clock strikes midnight, there are a bunch of properties that just disappear from the market. And the reason for that is because a lot of these listing agreements between a seller and a real estate agent are due to expire at the end of the year. Hey, give me until the end of the year to help you sell your house. And there are a lot of properties that don't sell. So they come off the market, and then they kind of slowly trickle back into the market over the course of the next few months, hopefully. Sometimes they're sold off market. Sometimes they go right back on. But we are still severely starved for inventory. You know, you look at the pending sales activity, and they exceed the number of properties we have for sale. There's more under contract than there is for sale. So inventory levels are basically at 1 month, meaning nothing else hits the market. We're sold out of homes in a month, less than a month in many areas of Charleston. The other thing that really was a big change last year was the amount of time it took to sell something, which really rushed people into decisions. The days on market was down 70% last year compared to 2020, but the national average was 27%. So we were selling homes 69% faster than we did in 2020 and compared that to 27% nationally. You can see how as folks have been moving to the area and this kind of great reshuffling of society has taken place, and in many instances is kind of done, right? If people could work from anywhere, then they've moved already. They've settled in. That transaction is done. So we had this big surge in demand as a result of that, which is why we've had a big boost in median sales prices. If you look at our market from 2012 to 2019, prices were going up every year about 4 to 6%. That's really when we started seeing appreciation again. Then in 2020, it was 9.4%. And then last year, it was 15.4%. We have just seen a massive increase in value, especially when you plot that over time. If sales were going down because demand was going down, by the way, we would have seen far less in appreciation. But here's the interesting thing, and this is part of what I think a lot of folks have been frustrated by. Folks that are trying to make a move up. They already live here. They need to sell their home. They need to buy something that's bigger, better, more expensive. If you look at the distribution of sales by price range, and you look at the $500,000 and up market, in 2011, as an example, homes that were $500,000 and above equated for less than 10% of all sales. But then every year since 2011, it's been over 10% of all sales were in the $500,000 price range. In 2017, it was 15%. And then last year, homes that were $500,000 or above represented 28% of all sales. Now, naturally, when prices rise, that pushes up the tide, and there's not a ton of takeaway in that specific stat, other than we are having people move here from other parts of the country that still find Charleston, South Carolina, by comparison, to be quite affordable. I know that us here locally are still kind of batting our eyelashes, or we're blinking slowly and pinching ourselves, asking if some of the prices that people are selling their properties for are real. And yes, they are. So bottom line is, we're moving from rapid expansion in many ways to just a more consistent level of growth this year. So South Carolina, things are looking good. Housing demand, likely to remain steady. It's going to be fueled by ongoing population gains and employment recovery. But there are supply constraints. It's the end of this kind of stimulus caffeine high, and rising interest rates I think will collect all of those things collectively are going to soften the rate by which our market continues to grow, especially in comparison to something like 2021, which is just a bit of an anomaly. Inflation, of course, remains the biggest short-run economic threat to South Carolina. Current labor shortage is a challenge. That's more of a long-term issue, but there's some huge opportunity in advanced manufacturing and transportation and distribution industry sectors. So, we're going to benefit from these long-term migration patterns. But I'll tell you what, if I'm a buyer or if I'm a seller, what do I do with this information? All right, we've just kind of gone through this overview of what's going on in the state, what's going on here in Charleston, Tri-County area. So let's then apply that to, if I'm going to buy a house, how do I use this information to my advantage? If I'm thinking of selling a house, what are some questions that I should be asking? How do I prepare for that? So we're going to do that when we come back. Again, if you've got some questions, I'm live in the studio. Feel free to call in 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250, or if you want to reach out to me personally, 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009, or listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Broadcast Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 10 on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I want to make a quick correction. I was giving you a phone number in the first segment that will still work and will still reach me. But the number to call or text if you'd like to have a private conversation with me is 843-800-0065. 843-800-0065. I have been crippled with calls from spammers. I'm getting, and I'm not kidding, I'm getting 30 plus spam calls a day from several different companies. Everybody's trying to, I'm getting, gosh, what's one? And it's not the ones that you'd think. It's not like somebody's trying to get an extended car warranty signed by me. It's people that are thinking I'm a much older person, senior benefits. It's all over the place. So anyways, I have had to do some creative, I've had to make some creative solutions to my phone number. I've had my phone number ever since I was in college, and I'm not going to abandon that one. But if you're getting plagued by spam calls as well, I feel your pain. There's some good resources that you can look up that will help you with that. Obviously, I'm in real estate. My number's public, so people are always going to call me and try and sell me some sort of product or solution for my real estate business. That's a given. But anyways, so sorry for giving you the wrong number there. But I'm also live in the studio. So if you've got some questions that you want to ask me, you want to call in, you want to be on the radio, then the number here is 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. So let me tie back into the real purpose for this show, which is helping buyers, sellers, and investors remain informed about the real estate market. And we were just talking about some takeaways from the annual South Carolina Economic Conference that I attended. And so let me then relate that to, if I'm going to buy a house, what should I know? If I'm going to sell a house, what should I know? What's really important based on some of this information? So if I'm a buyer, we understand that, the rate of appreciation is going to slow down, but prices are still going to go up. So if you are waiting for basically the bottom to fall out of the market, you might be waiting a while. There are plenty of people that have some very aggressive things to say about the quote-unquote bubble bursting. For a while, I've kind of gone back and forth, if I'm being honest, in terms of what I think is going to happen in the market. And you have to just take it as it comes, right? You can't just say, you can't stick your flag in the ground and say, okay, this is my belief, but then ignore other data as it comes out and as the markets unfold. So be fluid with your understanding of the market and the opinions that you have as new information comes out. So if you're a buyer, yeah, prices are going to go up before they come down. The other thing that you have to take into account is the fact that we've already been told interest rates are going to go up. So we are dealing with yet more affordability issues. It's just more expensive to own real estate here. I'd mentioned earlier that prices last year were up 15.4%. I also did mention, though, that transactions were down, especially in the second half of last year compared to the second half of 2020. So don't be fooled by some of these spin stories that people put out about, sales have been down, therefore the end is near, and it's the end of the world as we know it. So just be careful for some of those stories that are designed really purely to get clicks and create buzz, or just drive some sort of traffic to a site so they can get paid on it. But we also know, as I mentioned, that the days on market was basically cut in half. Homes were selling 2.5 times faster than they were in 2020, which requires preparation and quick decision making. And so this is where I want to stay for just a second, because the process from the consumer side when purchasing a home has remained the same for the past, 15-ish years, which is you go online, you see a house you like, or you're driving by, you see a house you like, you call an agent, they show you the property, you either like it and make an offer, or you don't, and then that agent offers to show you something else. And you're just, hey, if that person, that agent that you were talking to is well-spoken and seems to understand the process and can speak intelligently about the house or the area, then from your perspective, hey, that's good enough. We'll work with that agent. And that's how agents have earned business for a long time. When markets shift, and we're in a very heavily favored seller's market, not only is it incredibly important that you get a jump start on new listings before they hit the market, because that's where you win in this market, is by finding the things that other people have not found yet as being available to purchase. And I'm not talking about things that are online, because everybody has access to that. I'm talking about the properties that are about to go on the market. Can we reasonably find out who those people are? The answer is yes. And the people, let's say that you want to buy a house in the next 3 months or so. Well, if there are real estate companies that have done a really good job, an intentional job of organizing their information, and they have a way of sifting through it, the solution is to have an effective way for us to communicate about the people that have intent to buy and sell, but have not made themselves publicly available. I mean, we've got a database of 20,000 people. We have two databases, actually. One of them has 20,000 people in it that have all expressed an interest in some way, shape, or form in real estate over the years. And so those are the people that we have connections to. There's been conversations had about real estate. Now, let's say that we get off the phone with a buyer and they say, yes, this is what we're looking for. This is when we plan on moving. This is why we're moving. We're going to look at our database and say, well, who have we spoken with that is interested in selling their home, in which their home fits your search criteria? So let's see if we can match up one of these kind of what we call shadow inventory, one of these shadow buyers with one of these shadow sellers. It's really not rocket science. The challenge is most agents don't have the bandwidth to do something like this. They just don't have the time, or they don't devote time to it. Rather, I mean, they have time. They just choose not to spend it on this particular solution because the setup for that from a technological perspective is actually a little more complicated than you would think. We need efficient ways to determine who's going to sell a home to a buyer looking for this type of property in this type of area in this type of price range. So if I'm a buyer, I guess my advice to you, if you're a buyer, is let's stop rushing the process so much, in that you go and you see a property, you call the agent assigned to it, and if they've got a heartbeat and a nice smile, then that's who you work with. Let's take some time and let's interview real estate agents. This is a big deal. It's a big purchase. Ask them some tough questions. Ask them about their experience, their availability. That's a big one. If your agent is so busy that it takes them a day or two to get you into a house to see it when it hits the market, guess what? In many instances, that property is already out of your hands. You can't do anything about it because they've already gotten multiple offers, unless you're just willing to pay a ridiculous price. And most buyers don't want to do that. So be a little harder on these agents. Interview them. What is it that they're really offering you, aside from the ability to get into a lockbox and then knowledge of contracts and the process of writing an offer and getting something under contract and sold? There's got to be more than that. Now, if you're a seller, here's my biggest kind of takeaway for you. There are a lot of sellers out there that are opportunistic sellers. They essentially are speculative sellers. They don't need to sell right now. There's nothing pushing them out the door. There's no deadline that is attached to their move. They'd like to move. If we could find them something that is worthy of moving into, then they would likely move. But there's not a sense of urgency. And so what a lot of sellers have decided, this is based on conversations, and this is, we just sold a home for $5.3 million, which was $1 million more than anything else that had sold in that neighborhood. We represented the seller, marketed it, sold it. It was a great deal, great transaction. And so they felt like, hey, now's the time. And I think they were right. A lot of sellers are thinking and feeling the same way, which is, I kind of want to sell now when the getting's good. So if you're trying to time the market, the most important factor should be hyper-local stats. What's happening in your specific neighborhood and in your specific price range in your general area? Who are you competing with? Because here's the deal. When we run comps for people, when we help people understand what their home is worth and we actually show them the process, I'm not the type of agent that just brings you some sort of printed out report that says, hey, I did some research without even seeing your house and here's what it's worth. No, I'm going to bring the actual data with me and we're going to sit down together and I'm going to show you, you're going to see what I see, and I'm going to explain to you how I arrive at the value I arrive at. It's a very informative process for people. Yes, it takes longer than just handing them a stack of paper saying, hey, here's all the research and what I think your home is worth, which they did before they even walked through your house. How can they determine what your home is worth if they haven't even seen it yet? Sounds like a Zillow approach to estimating value. But anyways, we're not going to go there. So if you're trying to time the market, look to see what's available. Perfect example. I own a condo with my wife. I bought it in 2006, and we bought it for $140,000. But this is not necessarily part of the story, but get this. We bought it for $140,000, and then the market tanked. And at one point in time, it was worth a whopping $40,000. And on top of that, I had a $6,000 special assessment, and our regime fees went up to like $550 at one point in time. Great deal, right? Yeah, awesome investment, Brian. Maybe you should practice what you preach. Well, obviously, I didn't have any control over it. Could I have handed in the keys? Sure, but it would have wrecked my credit. Anyways, we held on to the property. We don't owe anything on it. And now we are selling it for $189, and it went under contract in 2 days. So yay, it all worked out. I made, gosh, what is that? After all the bills are paid and taxes, whatever, made a few $1,000 over 15 years. Whatever, it's fine. At least I didn't lose money, right? But here's what I'm getting at. We decided to sell the property because there was nothing available in the entire condominium complex. We're seeing that with a bunch of homes that we're running comps for right now. There's nothing available. So what's the great thing about that? You now get to set that next best price for properties in that area. So everything else was selling in the high 170s. I said, you know what? Let's do 189. Boom, under contract. And that's what the market allows you to do as a seller, is kind of test the waters, push the envelope. Now, here's something else that's kind of funny. The unit right below me listed the day after I did. They're a 3-bedroom, and they only asked like $5,000 more. And I don't know who that seller is. I don't represent them, but I got to tell you this. That was a stupid move. They could have asked more money and probably gotten it. So, sellers, if you're thinking of selling opportunistically, look to see if there's anything available in your neighborhood, in your area, in your price range. If not, and you want to sell, then now is the time to sell. You get to then set the precedent for what these homes are now going to be selling for. So, if that's something I can help you with, if you want to learn more about how much your home is worth, what we could put it on the market for, how many buyers we have for your home right now, how many sellers we're talking to that match your search criteria if you want to buy a house, this all kind of works in tandem, then feel free to give me a call, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And remember, I'm live in the studio, so if you have questions, if you have some kind of logistic questions about buying or selling a home this year, some general knowledge questions, call into the studio, 843-556-1250, 843-556-1250. Stick around, folks, for the second half of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 and WTMA.com.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, The Big Talker.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. As a reminder, I'm here live in the studio taking your calls. If you have any questions about the real estate market, about the real estate process, buying, selling, investing, happy to help. 843-556-1250 is the number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. Now, if you want to reach out to me personally, you've got a private thing you'd like to discuss. You're maybe interested in buying, selling, investing in real estate. Maybe you've got a personal question that you just don't want on the air. That's okay. My number, which you can call or text, is 843-800-0065. 843-800-0065. Or you can just go online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And you can learn more about my team, who we are, what we do, what we sell, how we sell it. Find out what your home is worth, see if there are any homes for sale that match your search criteria, find out how many buyers we have looking for a home like yours right now. We have that technology available to you guys on our website. So a lot of great stuff on there. Of course, hundreds of versions of this show and the radio show tab. But I want to switch gears. I want to talk a little bit about unethical behavior among agents. We're getting to the point now where there are so many real estate agents, and agents are not trained, in my opinion, the way they used to be. There are a lot of mistakes that are happening in our industry. A lot of people are getting very frustrated at the fact that we as an industry don't do a good job, which we don't, in policing the industry. Everybody's so busy that, yeah, an agent might be frustrated by unethical behavior when they see another agent do it, but not going to do anything about it because who's got the time? Right? So I want to talk about a few different types of unethical behavior that I'm seeing, or that you just need to be aware of. I mean, when you buy or sell a house, it's stressful, right? Anybody that promises you a stress-free transaction just hasn't sold real estate before. We can minimize that stress as much as possible, but we remove the emotion from the equation so that we can be objective when you're buying or selling or investing in real estate. Now, of course, one of those unethical behaviors is discrimination, right? Real estate agents have to be really careful about doing anything that could be seen as discriminatory. Saying that a house, as an example, is a great family-friendly home in a great family-friendly neighborhood. You can't say that. It violates fair housing laws because there's mention of marital status. There's those protected classes: race, sex, religion, familial status, disability, national origin, color. We can't obviously refuse to work with somebody. We have to have a reason not to work with somebody. And of course, we can't steer people towards specific neighborhoods or away from specific neighborhoods. And we get that question asked a lot more than you would probably think. Hey, I want to be in a good neighborhood, or I don't want to be in a bad neighborhood. Is this a bad area? Well, we can't answer that kind of information. So, that's the Federal Fair Housing Act. We can't provide you with that kind of information. You need to research it. We can give you the tools to do that, but we can't answer that kind of information for you. Now, one that's a lot more common, it's probably the most frequently seen, is just misrepresentation, right? So let's say that I mention a structural feature in a home and I'm wrong. That's a problem. That's misrepresentation. That could result in legal action. What we see more often than probably anything is the tax records will say that a home is a certain square footage. But then the last time it was in the MLS, it was a different square footage. But then the last time before that was a different square footage. And now we've just taken another measurement and it's a different square footage. It's amazing how much homes shrink and grow over time, depending upon how long they've been in the MLS. And I've got news for you. If you're selling expensive real estate, it doesn't matter how expensive the real estate is, every square foot counts, right? But if we're selling a multi-million-dollar home and we're off by a few hundred square feet, and it's selling for $500, $1,000 a square foot, that's a problem. Huge problem. But we see it all the time. Agents just, let's just pick the biggest number. Let's find out at what point in time was this home, 3,300 square feet, even though I'm getting 2,900 square feet on my measurement. Let's use that one. That sounds great. Another thing we see agents doing is just giving legal advice. We are not attorneys. We are not legal professionals. Yet all these agents put on their attorney hat and then write these really complicated, either really complicated or extremely ambiguous contract language into the contracts, which have already been pre-approved by actual attorneys. But they'll go in and they'll say something ridiculous like contingent upon buyer satisfaction with the results of the home inspection, or contingent upon buyer's review of HOA documents. Now, that sounds innocent enough, but, well, when's the deadline? Could it be the day before closing and then the buyer just says, you know what, don't like the HOA docs, sorry, I'm out? If you don't have a deadline attached to that contract, if you don't determine what's going to happen after that deadline, then you're in a very bad position as a seller. You're now basically held hostage by that ambiguous contract. So that's the kind of stuff that agents, frankly, just don't know. They don't know yet. They think that they're doing the right thing. Oh, yeah, I'll add this extra contingency for my client. Now, if that person representing the seller isn't aware of this kind of stuff, then they have just done their seller a disservice. I'll tell you the other thing that happens really often, and this is something that you need to be aware of, is agents will, let's say that I've had a listing on the market for a month and a half. And an agent calls me and they say, hey, I noticed the property's been on the market for a month and a half. It's kind of sitting around. Like a month and a half is this extremely long time these days. I mean, it kind of is, but certainly not cause for somebody to say, well, what's wrong with that place? But that's kind of the mentality that we have right now. And so let's say, I'm just curious, what's going on with the house? Why hasn't it sold? And then, insert boilerplate answer if you actually understand anything about sales, or you just don't address that at all and you just move past it. But then they'll say something like, hey, if my client needs to make a pretty quick decision, and they'd pay cash, is your seller pretty negotiable? Now, when an agent answers that question, no matter what the answer is, they are violating their client's confidentiality. Or let's say the agent calls and they say, have you had any offers on the property? And then the agent, thinking that they're creating some urgency and doing that by saying that there has been interest in the property, they might say something like, yeah, we had an offer and, we went back and forth for a while. We got pretty close. We just couldn't get the deal done. Well, what does that agent now know? They know that you negotiated multiple times off of your listing price. So your listing price now means nothing. We want to create urgency. We want to create fear of loss. We can't do that if we're telling people that we're negotiable, that we've negotiated in the past. We want them to assume that if they don't make a quick decision, someone else will and they could lose that property. Now, I mean, we can't do that every time, right? There are specialty properties that we sell that just take a while because it's a specialty buyer we have to line that property up with. But in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of agents that just need to stop talking because all they're doing is hurting their client. Now, of course, from our perspective, because we understand that so well, that's part of our process. I don't care if that agent's going to divulge information that harms their client. My responsibility is to my client. I want to do everything I can to help them win. And what I'm doing is not unethical. If I ask them a question and they answer it, they're the one doing their client a disservice. They should know better. Some hard lessons need to be learned among these agents that just don't have the training yet. So there are these unethical practices that happen behind closed doors, and that's part of what I do on this show is peel back the curtain on this industry and help you understand what's happening. You as a seller, you as a buyer, need to have an interview with your agent and ask them tough questions. How do you handle this situation? Tell me about a time when, insert question. But be harder on these folks because there are a lot of agents that are just very easily earning business. And if you took the time as a client to compare what they were saying or doing or offering to someone else, it'd be a no-brainer to go with someone else. And that's okay. Competition is healthy. We need it. So if you'd like to interview me, if you have some hard questions for me, happy to answer. I love it when people ask me hard questions. I really do. I respect it. So if you'd like to interview me for the job of helping you buying, selling, or investing in real estate, then my number is 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or you can check me out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or you can send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Now, there's only a few minutes left, so if you've been thinking about calling into the program, we're at about 8.5 minutes left. So the number here in the studio is 843-556-1250. Give us a ring. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm going to rush into this segment because we've only got a few minutes left, and I wanted to give you some takeaways if you're thinking about selling your house for sale by owner. So why do most people do it? Pretty obvious. They want to save commission. They say the standard commission is 6%. There's actually no such thing as a standard, quote-unquote, commission because we can charge what we want. There is no industry-regulated amount that it costs you to work with a real estate agent. So some are 6, some are 5, some are 4, some are 10. It just depends on what you, what your preference is as a client. But if you're going to sell your home for sale by owner, what are some instances in which it might make sense to actually do that? Well, number one, if you've already identified a buyer for your house, then yeah, you could save some money by going at this on your own. And you've got some options. You could either hire a real estate attorney to make sure that the contracts are done correctly. You can hire a real estate agent to work with you just as a transaction broker for significantly less. In many instances, like 1% instead of 6%. So you have some money saving options here. But if you're going to sell your home on your own, then you have to be informed. Not knowing what you don't know is a recipe for disaster. You need to take some time and you need to become educated in this process. I'll give you a perfect example. I'll call it for sale by owner. And, yes, I call for sale by owners. I want to see if we have buyers that are interested in a property like theirs. I want to see if they, just wanted to try it for a week or two with the intent of selling their home with a real estate agent. My interest is in helping them sell their house and making sure that it's done the right way. And so I'll ask them, hey, can you send me a link to the property, more information about it, your property condition disclosure statement? And they'll say, my what? And then I'll have to help them understand that, look, when you sell a property in South Carolina, you're required to fill out this document that details any material defects about the house. Just because you don't know about it doesn't remove the obligation for you to fill this document out. Unless, you're okay with the idea of potentially getting sued, which most people aren't. And then you haven't saved any money, right? So there are certain instances in which, if you were to go and sell for sale by owner, you can save money in commission, either by hiring what we call a transaction broker, which we offer people. It's just the ability to use our services and our understanding of the contract and of the process so that what you want to accomplish, what you're hoping that the buyer and seller understand, is reflected accurately contractually, right? Now, I've got this guide that I wrote on selling a home for sale by owner. If you'd like a copy of it, just text the word guide to 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065. It'll give you a bunch of things to help prepare you for, like, all these agents that call you saying, hey, I want to come and see your house to see if it fits the needs of one of my buyers, which, in 99 times out of 100, they don't have a buyer. They just want to get in front of you so that they can pitch you on why you should work with them to list your house with them. It's a huge waste of time. If they had a buyer, why aren't they going with them? So, I have to preview the house first before the buyer comes and see this property. Yeah, right. You know what you should do? You should say, bring your buyer, but before you do, send me their pre-approval letter or their proof of funds and see how many of them actually show up. You'll be surprised. Okay, so if I can help you in any way with regard to real estate for sale by owner, buying, selling, investing, give me a call, 843-800-0065, 843-800-0065, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. You guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009.